What's going on, guys? Matt Mulligan with the Take a Mulligan podcast here with episode number 7. And today I have Gene Voloshin on the podcast. Gene owns Catalyst Development. He's a client of ours. He's been a client for a very long time. And he has an incredible story of him coming from the Ukraine, moving to the US when he was 18 and struggling all along the way to build a company that he was happy with. And now his company is very successful and continuing to succeed. And he's got a family and he's got such an incredible story. And he is, again, one of these diehard entrepreneurs that I think you guys will definitely resonate with and hope you guys can learn something. So here we go, episode number 7, coming at you.
Yeah.
Gene, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
This is your first time in Plymouth, right?
First time in Plymouth, first time recording a podcast. Obviously, first time in your office. You guys did a wonderful job. I really love it.
Thank you. A lot of firsts for you. What do you think of Plymouth so far? I know you haven't seen much of it, but a little different than Needham.
It's different than Needham. It's very nice to get out and see that there are other
areas than Needham.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't get out of Needham, Newton, Wellesley area that much, so it's really actually nice to be here.
That's primarily where your business is?
Yes.
Right around there?
Yeah.
So you have a development company, Catalyst Development.
Yes.
Correct? So tell me a little bit about that company first.
Sure.
How did you start it? What do you guys do? Tell me a little bit about Catalyst.
Okay. So the way it started is back in 2004, my wife and I bought a house, a small ranch that we wanted to knock down and build a new house instead. We hired a contractor that was recommended by our friends. He completed homes for 3 or 4 of our close friends. And let's just say that he stumbled on our house big time.
Good way of putting it.
Yeah, perhaps it was the recession that was coming up or increase in prices in material. But to make a long story short, he basically took a lot of our money and left and never finished the house. So we had 2 decisions, 2 possible options. Either I take over the project as a project manager, go to the bank and say, I can no longer hire a general contractor. I need to be the general contractor and hire all the subs. Or the bank will need to take the house because we just could not financially finish it. Bank allowed me to finish it myself. So I hired all the subs, all new people, and finished the house, made ton of mistakes. That's in addition to our contractor that ran, he took about $90,000. Which was a huge amount of money.
A lot of money.
Back that was about a third of our budget, I think. And it was a very painful but good experience. I call it my construction MBA cost. And basically what happened is, since that moment, I understood that I actually truly enjoyed the process. At that point, I was still in IT. I was in corporate, and I worked in a lot of startups and various technology companies where we were working on apps or various systems where you would develop the system. By the time you're done, it's either obsolete or not too many people are using it. I found that when you build a house, it is so rewarding because it is there to stay. And me as a homeowner, I enjoyed the fruits of my labor. So I thought that this would be a great business to be in because you build something that lasts. And that's how the idea was born. But I wasn't ready to jump into it. Yeah.
But when you said, so you jumped on the project as the GC basically, but did you have experience before that with building, or did you learn as you go? Like, how did you say, okay, this guy took 90 grand and now I have to do it, but how did you start doing it if you didn't know what you were doing?
I went to, well, I think I had 1 or 2 people that were giving me advice on what the next step is. And I also went to the local building department in Needham, and I said, guys, I am screwed. I don't know what to do. You're gonna have to guide me through this process. So just tell me what is it that you need from code perspective, and I will deliver. And like I said, it was basically, that's why I call it construction MBA. I made a ton of mistakes. I probably overpaid for a few things. I probably hired some people that I would never hire nowadays. But that's how I learned.
What mistakes can you remember learning from in that process?
Number one mistake. So two mistakes. Number one, I overspent. You're already down $90,000. You don't go and buy a $550 total toilet. Okay, you can sit on a $300 total toilet just as fine. But I did that. So there were some of these mistakes like that where you just don't understand that you can meet the right formula, put the check marks, but you don't have to spend this much money. That's number one. The second biggest mistake that I made is I just hired some shady people. Like I would go to Craigslist and look for, okay, this guy can install a masonry wall, and then you have a guy who comes in and he installs a masonry wall, and it's just you know that it's going to be a disaster from the day you meet that person. So yeah, those are the things you learn.
Well, I think in the industry too, it's important to really trust the person who's leading the project and also the people that you're assigning. Like now, obviously, the people you have, I'm sure, are a lot better. But
yes,
yeah, I think a thing you might have learned, I'm assuming too, is that you have to put the right people in the right position and really be careful as to who you actually get to do that job. Don't cheap out on the talent. Maybe you can make that money back by getting a little less expensive toilets and knobs and whatever else. But I feel like maybe spend the money on the actual talent. Is that a fair enough assumption?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. I think that in the business that I'm in, building new homes, I think that there are not a lot of differentiating factors between the builders by default. And what I mean by this is, technically, the line of business that I'm in, the spec home, mostly spec home building. We do some customs too, but mostly spec home. A lot of subs that I use, my competitors use them as well, right? So what is it that really differentiates me and my competitors if we're all using the same subs, right? So obviously, I think I know what needs to be, what the key differentiating factors are, but and there are plenty of them. But on the labor side, right, one of the things that we do is every year we basically do kind of like a peer review for our subcontractors. We literally have a spreadsheet where we rank them on quality of work, communication, support, cleanliness, things like that. And we do that as my entire team. We get together for half a day and we just do the rankings, and then we communicate those rankings back to our subs, right? And we, let's say, contact our for example, HVAC company, and we say, you guys rated amazing on your quality of work. It's very reliable, very good price, very good response. But let's say you guys need to improve your cleanliness, right? Things like that. So we actually give them literally the feedback. And but in addition to that, there are some guys that need just a tiny tweak and they get better. But then there are also guys that just need to be dropped based on ranking. We don't have that happening nowadays. But even looking back, say 4 or 5 years ago, that's how we got rid of some of the people that just didn't meet our standards because of that review. Do
your subs appreciate the feedback like that? I feel like it's either a toss-up. It's either who is he to tell me how to work, but also there's people who are like, I appreciate him telling me the feedback. Have you had a little bit of both from doing that? That's right. I do get a little bit of both. But I try to explain to them, I'm not doing this because I have some evil intentions. I think that I'm trying, if anything, I'm trying to bring everyone up together, right? So
That
a great
electrician, we are raising our quality, our standard, and our brand recognition. But guess what? You electrician, your brand recognition is rising with us as well, right? Because you are delivering the type of quality that people are seeing, right? That we're expecting from you. So I think that for the most part, they actually do appreciate it.
Well, and it's from you to your subs. All of those reflect on your work. So if your HVAC guy is not cleanly, it's going to reflect on you. And I think if you're all on the same page, and like you said, if you can raise them all up together, then it's almost like now you're creating a really big web of people who are on the same mission that you are, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that spans not only just what you do, but in business in general. Like I know, when I hired Ryan and his brother Brandon, who it's important to have people on your team that care about the same thing you do and are on that train to like, here's where I want to take the company. Yeah. Here's my standards. Hop on. If you're not going to hop on, then I don't want you to be on my train.
Absolutely. And I think that number one thing is the passion, right? Like you really need to, need to synchronize with people and understand that they have that passion in them to deliver quality work. They don't even necessarily have to have the skills, right? I can teach the skills. I can't teach passion. You either have it or you don't. We actually had this conversation recently. We have one of our hires, and we were joking around, kind of like, well, what happens if that new hire leaves? And I don't know if you guys read the book by Tony Say, Delivering Happiness. That's Zappos book. They have this program within Zappos organization where you come on board, they train you, and I don't remember within how much time, I think it's maybe within the first 90 days, they will literally pay you money for you to quit. They will pay you, and it's not a small amount. I think it's probably equal to like 1 month's salary. That's in addition to other things that you get.
Wow.
But they want you to quit. So, and we were kind of joking around, and I said to the new guy, if you decide to leave, I will pay you to leave. Yeah, because what I'm looking for is the passion. If you're just here just to bang out the hours,
get a paycheck and leave.
Like, you can probably get paid more somewhere else. But if you're passionate, if you want to learn, if you want to kind of have that fire and enjoy what you do, then stick around.
Where did that passion come for you, though? Because you said you weren't in the building industry to start. You kind of had to because your contractor took your money and left. But how did you eventually get the passion to do this? Because you went from, you said IT. Is that what you said?
So you know what, Matt? It's very interesting because I feel like my passion has always been kept by someone, right? What happened is I was in corporate, and literally my last job in corporate, I was pretty much let go of, right? I was told that I will not have a career. The reason, Gene, you're too passionate.
Your boss told you that?
My boss told me that. I said, what is wrong? What is it that you don't like about me? What's the feedback? You're too passionate. So I came home and I asked my wife, what does it even mean? Like, maybe it's my English as a second language. Maybe it's the cultural thing. I don't understand why.
Yeah, how is that a bad thing?
How is
to
that
be
a bad
passionate?
thing? So, she had a much more successful corporate career, so she can read between the lines. So I think what she explained to me, that maybe I was creating too many waves where it had to be rather calm waters. Because I have this fire, like I need to execute, I need to get stuff done. I like to resolve issues, right? I want to tackle problems. I want to generate revenue. I like to grow business. And at least that organization, all they wanted is just calm waters. They just wanted me to coast. They didn't want that. So,
and that was sort of, I can relate to that a lot too, because I feel like my job was like that too. You come out of college, master's degree in architecture, thinking you're going to take over the world, 25 years old, right? And then, you work at a company where it's like, here's your job, here's your box you fit in, stick in that box and just coasts. And I had a problem with that too. It's like here, I wasn't let go because of my passion. It was more just, well, I guess it kind of was. I had passion for Hawk Visuals. It was a side job. So I decided that I was going to pursue that, which they were fine with. But for me, and I think for you too, it's like seeing this box getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and not being able to break out of that and be passionate about your job is kind of an easy way of an entrepreneur to take what their current job is and just get to something else. People ask me, how hard was it to move on? And yes, it was very difficult. I'm sure it was for you too, but the fire inside me drove me to do that, and it was easy at that point.
Yes. So talking about that fire, I can relate. It's my concerns were more on the financial side, right? I'm a man of the family. Although I know it's the old-fashioned way of thinking about it, and I'm grateful to my wife because she's the one that pushed me to make the move. She's the one that said, just leave. I will, I have a good job. I will support you. Leave. But we had two small children, and had to pay for daycare, for mortgage. You guys know all these expenses. So it was pretty scary. On top of this, the way my business is, I have to buy the land or buy an old house, knock it down, build a house, sell the house. That's when I get paid, right? So I literally have no paycheck for the entire year. Let's say if that process takes a year, right? And we've had a good economy, so it's been working out like this. Sometimes I know guys get stuck with the property, right? But bottom line is no paycheck for a year. So from the moment she said, leave and start doing this, it's 3 more months before we found our first property. And it's another year until I built it and sold it. So for a year and 3 months, I had no income coming in. So that was the hardest part.
Did that put a big strain on the family at that point? Or was it at a point where you could kind of get by with that?
It put a huge strain on the family. It's obviously I think I was coming out from my previous job. I was making probably, I don't remember, maybe $120,000 or $130,000. So, plus bonus, something like that, and benefits, right? Health. So obviously that compiled. All of that was gone, right? So it was just my wife's salary. And I think it was pretty stressful for us. I think, but interesting thing happened. While my wife supported me big time, about a year later into this, she goes, I think I'm going to quit too. Yeah. She's like, I think I'm done with my corporate career.
What was she doing?
She was in digital marketing. So she worked for digital, digital agencies.
Sure, yeah.
Some of the big ones. And she was really good at it. She was in charge of user experience, things like that. And she said, I'm leaving too. So I'm like, okay, great. Now we have zero income. We had one income. Now we're down to nothing. So I really cannot screw this up. I really have to get it done right. And 2 kids to support. So we had some challenging years. The first 2-3 years of business were pretty challenging. We had a year once where we had $2,000 left on our account. And we sold the house. We would not be able to get through the end of the month, but on 15th of the month, we actually sold the property and we got some cash.
We're cutting it close.
We were down to $2,000. It was stressful.
Do you think that, and I probably know the answer, but when you're an entrepreneur or you're someone who decides to quit and do their own thing, do you think that having that family that depends on you makes it significantly harder to make that jump as if you're just kind of a solo person? Because now you have people who are relying on you. You have a wife, you have kids, you have all these people who are relying on you now to make money. And yes, I know your wife works and does her own thing, but when I quit, and I think this is also talking about entrepreneurship, I think timing is really important.
Yeah.
At that point, I was not married, did not have a house. Yes, I had to pay for my own health insurance and that type of thing, but I didn't have kids and a house and things that I had to make money to support. Yeah. I was supporting myself and paying enough to pay for my apartment, and my fiance works, so it was fine. But now, if someone like you or even other entrepreneurs have family and a wife and a house that they have to pay for, and now they quit their job, that's significantly different than if they're just dating someone with no kids, no house. So I think it's almost like having people who depend on you could also be fuel to make you want to succeed more because of the people depending on you.
100%. It was basically, once I was all in doing this, it was like mindset, failure is not an option. Like I although there was this financial worry in the back of my mind, on front of my mind, I was just like a raging bull. I was working pretty much 18 to 20 hours a day. I wasn't sleeping. If I wasn't on construction sites, I was looking for new sites. I was looking for new technologies. I was looking for new vendors. It was just basically, it's just like, I know it sounds cheesy, but it was like beast mode on. Like I could not fail this one because what am I going to tell my kids?
Yeah, and you're putting in the hours. So, if you did fail, it wasn't because you weren't working hard enough. It was because of something else.
Right.
And you weren't going to fail because of the fact that you had kids and a wife and you want to have a successful career. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you think that because you're from Ukraine, correct? And you moved here when you were 18?
Yes.
Do you think that quote unquote immigrant mentality, do you think that at all helped you or played a role at all into you doing this? Or it was just something you just have always had? Because I've talked to other people who have moved from, wherever, Germany, other places, and they had that very similar immigrant mentality, which really makes you succeed. And a lot of other billionaires and entrepreneurs have that.
Yeah. Is
that something you think has attributed to some of your success?
Yes, I think 100%. I think if I look back, and I started doing more of that as I got older, I started analyzing myself as a child, right? What are the things, were there any indicators of what my future career could be, right? Back then. And I grew up in the Soviet Union, right? So granted, socialism, very limited opportunities. Everyone is equal. There is no reason to be better than someone else because everyone is getting paid the same, right? But it's interesting that things that excited me back then were not things like engineering or I don't know, things like medical field or agriculture, things like that, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is at the end of 80s in the Soviet Union, you probably heard Gorbachev created this openness and glasnost and perestroika, things like that, right? And what does perestroika mean? That means that he was trying to free up the markets a little bit. So he created, the first step was creating these cooperative organizations where you could literally go to Turkey, for example, buy 200 pairs of jeans, bring them to Soviet Union, put it in your little kiosk and resell it, right? And you were getting paid for this. And this was unheard of because this was at the end of 80s. If you were to do this in 70s, you would be jailed, okay? You could not do that.
Really?
Because that was called speculation. And speculation was a criminal offense in Soviet Union. In 80s, they deregulated it. My uncle, who was a geography teacher and as a poet, 50-50. What excited me about him, why I was looking up to him in the 80s, is not because he was an amazing geography teacher or even better poet that actually published 12 or 13 books. What excited me is that he actually would go on a train to Poland, buy Levi's jeans there, come back to Kiev, Ukraine, and sell it on a black market somewhere and make, $20, $30, $40 profit on a pair of jeans, pack up his bag and cash, go back to Poland again and do these multiple runs. And I was getting thrill out of that one. So
what about it was thrilling to you? Was it the fact that it was like
making money?
Yeah, is that what it was?
Just action, right? It was like I loved it. I loved the action. I probably the entrepreneurial part that you're taking the risk. You get on that train. You go. You don't sleep at night. You watch your bags because there are always people trying to steal stuff at the border. The patrol guys are taking a cut. It's just like I was 13 years old at that time, right? Or 12. It was fascinating to me. So I'm watching these patterns right now. I'm thinking about it, like how much impression that left on me. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, I was too young. I was 14 years old. I couldn't go to Poland. I couldn't go to Turkey and do the things that my uncle did. But what I could do is, like, my first couple of deals, for example, I went to this sports goods store that was closing, and I bought out there. I saw that they were selling out the ping pong paddles. And I came to my mom and I said, Mom, I need money. I need to buy the entire lot of these pedals. They're Vietnamese pedals with nice rubber on them. They're amazing. We don't have any pedals at school, but we have a ton of ping pong tables. I said, I need to buy this lot of 20 because I can resell it. So my mom gave me money, and I went and I bought all the pedals and I resold them at school, made good amount of money. And again, thrill from that.
And that was like your first entrepreneurial thing. And then did you continue to do that throughout the years too? This whole buying, reselling, making money?
So trying to, right? And my wife was leaving. I met my wife back in Ukraine. We went to the same school together, right? But we were too young. We didn't date at that point. She was my sister's friend. So they were leaving, packing up for America. This was 93, I want to say, or 92. Her grandmother collected cards. You know how people collect players' cards here, basketball players? She collected Soviet movie actors. And these cards were like from 50s and 60s, old cards. So I grabbed the entire box of those cards. And then I posted an ad in a newspaper that I'm selling vintage movie cards. Met some shady guy at a train station, like in a tunnel of a train station, sold him a box of those cards, made good money from that deal. So that was another success. And then then I kind of thought, all right, now I need to formalize. I need to work for someone. I need to get experience. And then I tried working for a company that sold appliances, TVs, things like that, just large appliances, refrigerators. And this was my first introduction to, but by then the whole mafia thing was already in full swing. It was beginning of 90s. So that's where the childhood got really rough. And I show up for my first day at this job and I say, okay, guys, what's my first task? And they say, well, you're going to be distributing flyers on the main street of Kiev. You're going to be distributing flyers so people can come to our showroom. Okay, where are the flyers? This guy opens the briefcase, and next to the stacks of flyers, you see this gun. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
And how old were you back then at this point?
14.
So this was, you were literally working for the mob?
No, I was not. It's just that the country went through the phase where everyone had to have protection, every business. It was division of territory. So
really?
I was a 14-year-old kid, but every businessman had bodyguards and protection. And it was, so that part, like starting from like 91, in the 80s, at least it was more civilized. But starting from the beginning of the 90s until for me, until I left in 95, that's where the rough period began, because everything was just, mafia and racketeering, and it was bad.
Wow. Was that a reason why you decided to leave, or was that just, I guess, part of the formula for you?
I think it was part of the reason. I think it was part of the reason because I'm grateful that my parents made that decision. I was actually 17. I turned 18 like 13 days after I came to America. So I was a 17-year-old kid. It was probably for guys my age, it was probably the most dangerous time back in Ukraine. So I'm glad that we were able to come to America.
Did they make you come, or were you the one that said, I want to get out of here and go to the US? Like what was that point in your life like when you were 17 going on 18 coming to the US? How did you transition out and come here?
So we came as a family, right?
You did,
so
okay.
I'm Jewish, and by right, if I board the plane and arrive to Israel, you get a citizenship pretty much the moment you get off the plane, right? Because that's the policy of the state of Israel. Because this is the home of Jewish people, Israel, right? So most of my family did that. They packed up in 92 or 93 and they went to Israel. It was very quick and easy decision to escape the turmoil that was going on. My grandfather was already in Boston, so we decided to apply for immigration permit to America, but we had to wait. We had to go through the process. We had to travel to Moscow for interview at the U.S. Embassy there. And then finally we were granted permission to come here as refugees. So refugees from, I guess, discrimination because we were Jewish. But in addition to that, I am just grateful my parents got me out of there because, like I said,
it was a rough time for
I was
you.
at a very, very, very dangerous age there. Let's just say there was a lot of extortion going on and a lot of fighting and a lot of kids my age did not make it. So
were there situations that you were directly involved in that sort of maybe not scared you, but was there like a real moment you're like, oh my God, this is really happening to me here?
Yeah. So I mean, it's like I don't recall those stories like that often, but let's say you could easily have a situation where I was already at university, right? I was 17 years old, first semester freshman at university. I would be walking down the street, some 14-year-old kid can come to you, say, punch my friend, right? This real story. Kid comes over, punches my friend. At 14, right? He's punching my 17-year-old friend. I grab him, didn't punch him, just I was a wrestler, so kind of subdued the guy. Mm-hmm. He gets up, he goes, you have no idea who you touched. You owe me $1,000 tomorrow. If you don't give me $1,000, you will deal with different people. And that's a real threat.
So what happened with that?
So you just had to know people that could talk to his people and settle it.
And that was a real thing that was happening.
Yeah.
Like that stuff you hear about in movies.
Yeah.
I feel like, and this was happening to you as a young kid.
Yep.
Wow.
My friend owned a little tiny business. All he was doing is on a train, like in a subway station, and this was allowed in Soviet Union or from Ukraine. My friend had a tiny business, like a little tiny stool with a little table where he would take the big lighters, BIC lighters,
sure, yeah.
And he would put the cartridge, he would recharge them with gas, right? So I don't even remember how much he was making, but he was approached by racketeers that said, you got to pay for this. And
really?
We had to basically gather up and to put up a fight. So yeah, it's
a
those
cutthroat
crazy
society.
times. It's just really, really crazy. I look at my kids right now, like I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I'm so happy that she does not need to think about stuff like that because for me, my 14 through 17 were probably the most stressful years I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of just the environment that you were in.
Because of the environment.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that every kid that is approximately my age that came from Soviet Union can attest to this experience.
But now, so when you made that decision, I'm sure, was it kind of a relief for you to come here, or were you nervous in a different way to come to the U.S. and basically pack up? Yes, your life has been stressful with what's been going on, but was there anything at all that wanted you to still stay where you were, or were you just ready to go, move on?
I was ready
to the U.S.
I was ready to go. There was nothing that really was holding me back there. We came to America. Again, tough age to come to America because at 18. And literally, people told me that it's a tough age because I'm coming at 18. I already did a semester of university. So there's no point of me going to high school here and a bunch of advisors told me that. But everyone is saying, you really need to go to college. But I'm not ready for college because I don't speak English very well. Most importantly, I do not understand the American way of education, how to absorb that information, right? And so my neighbor recommended, we settled in Brighton, and I had this Russian guy who lived across the hallway, and he said, I recommend that you go to Bunker Hill Community College for a semester, learn some English, improve your English, and after that, transfer to Suffolk University, where I go. Suffolk University is a great school. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna do that. So I went to Bunker Hill Community College exactly for a semester, applied to Suffolk University, and ended up at Suffolk.
Wow. And this was one of your neighbors that just recommended you do this?
Yeah, I did not know anything else, didn't have any guidance counselors who would say, what is it that you're interested in? Maybe one school is better than the other. None of that. Skip that entire process.
I was going to ask, did you, besides your parents maybe, did you have mentors when you first got here, like your neighbor who said, Gene, try this, or Gene, this is what I did, or try this and see what happens? Did you have that at all in the beginning?
Not at all. Not at all. And I think that this is the biggest thing. Like if I ever, it would have been so helpful if I actually had a mentor. But you're surrounded by other immigrants that are here for not much longer than you are, so they don't necessarily know that much either.
Yeah. But even throughout college or any of that, there's no real people that stood out to you as this could be a potential mentor.
I had when I came to America, my first job was Brugger's Bagels on Broad Street in downtown Boston. This place is gone already, but I was brought there by a representative from Jewish Vocational Services, and this guy Chip Selly, who hired me. Hi, Chip, if you're watching. We're still friends through all these years. And I remember him telling me years later, he's like, I have no idea why I hired you. It was probably because I have part of me that is Jewish and I just wanted to do a good thing because you didn't speak any English. I saw no value. It was almost like a forced hire. So he hired me, and he ended up being probably, in that first year and a half, he was the biggest impact on my life. So I can call him my mentor.
What about him impacted you?
I think it's the work ethics. And I think he was also very, he has the drive, he's passionate about things. And I find that I gravitate towards people like that.
And probably vice versa for him. He probably saw that in you, which might've been why he hired someone like you, possibly.
So he put me on a coffee station, right? And he says, well, you don't speak any English. So here are the coffees: dark roast, hazelnut, vanilla, decaf. You see the 4 containers, 4 thermoses? Your job is basically pour cups and watch when it's close to running out, you throw away the old filter, put the new filter in, and run it again. And I was running that thing like a machine within weeks. So he was telling me, he's looking at it, he's like, boy, he doesn't understand any English, but he figured out how to do this very efficiently. To make a long story short, 6 months later, he made me a supervisor of the store. So now I have all these people that were born here, and the English is native to them. And they're all wondering, they're coming to Chip and saying, well, why is he the supervisor?
Yeah, here's this Ukrainian guy.
Here. So this was a little tough, but I'm glad that Chip, he believed in me. And I think that he was truly my first mentor in this country. And then because of him, so I learned a lot. And because of him, I met another guy that was my second mentor, this guy, Dave. Again, I moved up to another bagel store, but Dave also got me a job at Super Salad. It was a company like that. They had like Fresh City. Fresh City franchise as well. Yeah, so he gave me a bit more polished mentorship because I worked with him not just at the bagel store, but then later on he brought me to the Fresh City corporate office where I actually had my first office job. And he taught me a lot of things that are just useful to know as an immigrant, because he actually told me that some of my habits are barbaric. So
like what? What type of habits?
we had a funny story. So we had this communal table where we would eat lunch with president of the company. It was a very small corporate office. So I was a filing clerk. I was in charge of the filing cabinet. That was my job. And we had, it's just like the guy with the stapler, right?
Like I had office space.
I had a favorite stapler and my favorite filing cabinet. And I hated doing this. And we would sit at a communal table, right? And eat our lunch. And I remember that day when someone brought watermelon. So, watermelon with pits inside. So I eat it like we eat it in Ukraine. You bite into it and you spit it on the plate, right? And after that meeting, he's like, Gene, we were at the same table as the president of the company. I gotta tell you, your habits are barbaric. I'm like, what do you mean by this? He's like, well, the way you eat watermelon. What's wrong? He's like, you don't spit your watermelon pits on your plate with that sound, right? So how do I eat it? He's like, well, you have to put it in a napkin like this carefully and then shake it off on your plate. I'm like, okay, Dave, thank you very much. That's definitely a valuable lesson. He taught me a lot more than this, but seriously, this guy definitely helped me polish up,
Yeah, and so you have like the initial guy, and then now Dave was his name. You said Dave now kind of made you more polished. And did you eventually get another one? Like when you kept getting more and more jobs, did you keep finding these mentors that kept kind of polishing you a bit more, or is it really just kind of a few in the beginning?
No. So this was the end. So I met two wonderful people. I worked with some cool people along the way later on, but none of them were really mentor material, not mentor material. Maybe in someone else they would be interested, but they were just not my mentors.
Yeah,
unfortunately. And that's one advice that I will give to my kids, or other people that are even in this industry. If you can find yourself a mentor, it is monumental. It's a huge thing. It will help you so much.
Why do you think it's important to have a mentor?
I think to a degree, not to oversimplify it, but it's a bit of a shortcut, right? Like when Dave tells you stop spitting your, watermelon pits on the table, he gets right to the point, right? So you don't have to spend 3 years making that mistake then to learn, right? He delivers, literally spoon feeds you this information. Also a good sounding board, right? That's important too. I mean, I wish I had a mentor later on in my corporate career. On the one hand, right? I'm glad it didn't work out because now I'm kind of on my own, and there are mentors that I find right now, right? As a business owner, but during corporate career, I think it's very important.
What mistakes have you made in the corporate world that maybe you might not have made, or maybe not as often as if you had a mentor? Has there been a few? Because now you've kind of went from the bagel shop, you've become more of a leadership part in that company, and then you eventually transitioned to corporate. Is that the lead? So because the corporate world is a lot different, I feel like, than even working in a bagel shop too. But what pitfalls have you seen that maybe if you have like a Dave type character, you might not have made that right away?
I was not good at playing political game correctly.
What do you mean by that?
That's what my wife always said, that I'm really bad at office politics. I am just like a nice guy. That's what she says, that you're a nice guy who wants to get stuff done. And you're result focused, and you just don't kind of like beat around the bush, and it, you don't. I just don't like to coast. I like to. It's either this or that, you know. But not. I can play in a gray, but I think again, thinking analyzing my personality, I'm just really more of an entrepreneur. I just don't think I'm an office material. That's all.
And I get that too, because I'm not an office material guy either. And I think you kind of realize that. And it's good to also realize that it doesn't matter when you realize it, but to have an ability to self-reflect and realize that where I am is not where I want to be, and this is where I want to be. I think that is the key, I think, to having a successful life, is to really look at where you're going, self-reflect and say, is this really where I want to be? And if not, how do you change that? Someone like you, who you keep saying you're a bull, you're going to push through things and get things done. That's really important. And I think, and I don't know, I'm assuming you do, but do you reflect on those decisions to continue to go forward and really think what this does to my life? Is that something that goes through your mind at all? Like it's because here's the thing with me. I think I have a hard time. I'm better at it now, but when I first quit to do my full-time job, I had a very hard time deciphering the why versus the what I'm doing. And I was so focused on results, getting things done, just doing something to build the company, where I felt like my personal life had suffered a lot. I was not seeing my girlfriend. I was not seeing my friends. I had an initial thought as to I wanted to inspire people through the company, but that really took a back seat to now results driven, make money, get my logo out there, get Absolutely. My content out there, where now, because I'm getting married and the company is still growing and I'm still on that result driven track, but now I think I'm able to kind of self-reflect and try to at least take a back seat, look at my life, and see if these decisions I'm making are affecting my life as a whole and not just the company. It's very hard, I think, to do that. And I don't know, maybe if you're at that point, or if that at all comes through your mind at all, that decisions that you make in your company will inevitably affect your personal life, because it might make you work harder, which might mean you are away from your wife and family more often. But does that self-reflective nature at all come into your thought throughout the weeks or days or months at all?
I think about this all the time. I really do. Yeah. I think I was on two different spectrums of this. When I was probably around 22, 23 years old, I was in corporate, everything was going fine. But I had like a really stressful situation that happened. And it was finance related. And that was actually before construction, right? That was before losing $90,000. I had a situation. All it was is just dispute, and I got so stressed out and so worked up that I started to become anxious, right?
What was that? Do you want to talk about what that was?
It was just a dispute with the tenant, right?
Okay.
Like I had kind of like an unstable tenant, which that's why I don't do the whole tenant thing. It's just not for me. I'd rather build new houses. But I had a dispute with tenant, and it was, someone who would go like from 0 to 100 back to 0 to like that. So it was very, very stressful. And I started to become very anxious, right? To a point where the situation, like I would get like jittery and my blood pressure would go up. And it got me like really physically ill, that situation, right? So what happened is, at that point, 2002, I think, I'm 25. I'm thinking like, oh my God, like I'm anxious all the time. I'm just gonna do this business analyst job. I am calculating years to my retirement because I don't think I'm gonna do anything. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do anything else because I'm so like such a nerve wreck, right? All the time.
But had that big of an impact on you.
That big of an impact.
Wow.
I don't know what it was. Maybe because it was going on for a while and like people just kind of like burst, like your nervous system just kind of collapses.
Yeah.
But it was just like, boom, like it's like, oh my God, like, I'm having a panic attack and this and that. It's like, what am I going to do? How am I ever going to make it in the office or even in my own business when I have this debilitating thing that's like making me anxious all the time, right? and I don't really talk about this at all, but now again, back to reflection, right? So I had all this spectrum that it's like, okay, I'm just going to bang out 30 years in corporate, coasting, business analyst role, and that's okay. And I can survive through this. And then a couple of years later, you're kind of like, okay, your body is recovering and the fire is back on. And it's like, forget this whole anxious thing. That's, you basically say F you to that thing. And it's like, keep charging, right? So now I start charging and I'm on completely at the end of the spectrum where, 6 years ago, I was thinking about, I just want to coast. Because I'm so petrified of getting this blood pressure going and being anxious. Now I'm like, all I want is just go head first, just like pound. And then this whole thing kicks in. What you're saying is that I went so hard into my business, does it impact my personal life, the balance and everything? And I think, honestly, probably for the first 3 years of me running a business, it certainly did impact. My wife, thank God, he took a lot on herself with kids, with home chores, she just offloaded a lot off of my brain so I could focus on the business. And I admit, I probably overcommitted on the business side at the expense of the personal life. I did not, like I mentioned to you in the beginning of our conversation, I did not keep any money. That was pretty reckless because I was basically, whatever money I was getting, I was reinvesting everything into business. I did not buy a fancy car or anything like that or watch I just wanted to grow the business. And then later on, I think I started coming into that, things started to come into focus where I'm like, okay, you really need to start thinking about the family and balance and the fact that, you don't need all the money. Like, you just have to find a balance where you can enjoy life. And now I have a different mindset. I really want my business to succeed, but I do want to spend time with my kids. I do want to take them to Justin Bieber concert, and I want to be there with them.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to just pay for it. I just want to experience it with them. I want to take them on that long European vacation once a year because I don't need a watch for $10,000. I would rather spend the $10,000 to spend the 10 days with my family, and that will remember forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to do something for myself, right? I bought a guitar 3 years ago, and I said I'm going to learn how to play guitar. So the only thing that happened to that guitar is that my dog peed on it while it's on the stand. I have not taken a single lesson. So the goal for this year is to actually start taking lessons.
I'll teach you. I'll play guitar.
You do?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I started when I was 13. Mm-hmm. My dad was a big music guy. He played guitar a lot, and I just saw him playing, and it was. I think I've had an entrepreneurial, background too, and just kind of wanted to learn things. And for me, that was so cool to see him playing AC/DC and Led Zeppelin stuff that I've always kind of grew up on, and seeing him play that, I'm like, I need to do that. How do I do that? And I think it was just like a couple weeks later, I asked my dad, I need to do guitar lessons. He said, okay, great. So I took guitar lessons, and I've been playing. I'm 28, so 15 years later. Nice. And it's so hard to I need to get back to playing. It's so hard now that, getting married and the business is kind of busy, but it's just like for me to have an outlet. Like I like to work out. I like to play guitar. That for me is kind of my outlet. Yes. So that when business is crazy and to keep my head clear, those are things that I like to do and pursue. Agreed. And I think, you're a very fit guy too. And I know that you do,
So same thing. Like I discovered CrossFit back in 2013. I always liked exercising, but nothing, like, I couldn't stick with any routines. But I discovered CrossFit. And I think, again, it's almost like it's part of the whole entrepreneurial mode because I like the competitive aspect of it. What I also like is that I don't have to think. I show up, the class is there, and for 1 hour, I'm not the boss. My coach, Steve, is the boss, and he tells me what to do, and he can yell at me, and that's therapeutic too.
Of course.
So, doing things like that, CrossFit, reading, going to concerts, hopefully learning guitar, traveling. That's a life balance.
It makes you a well-rounded person.
Yeah, that makes me happy. Not. I don't need to kill it with 50 houses. I would rather take 5 or 6, but have that lifestyle.
But it seems like that's a pretty big change from when you were younger. Like before, it seemed like you were talking about make money, succeed, do this. Now you have that obviously still and you want to grow, but now you take into consideration balancing who you are and who your family is going to become. So it's like you can't have one without the other. And so my fiance and I just did I think it's called pre-Cana wedding classes basically. And the deacon asked us both, is marriage 50-50? And we both said no. And my dad taught me this too, is that marriage is never 50-50. So when you quit your job and your wife was picking up the chores, she has 90% of the work and you're focusing on business. There's always going to be times throughout your marriage, I'm not married yet, or any relationship, that someone's going to pick up the slack while you have to do this one thing that eventually, once you get to a point, now it evens out.
Yes.
And maybe you take on more because this person's doing something. So there's always a give and take. And I think that kind of spans throughout business in general too. Even if you have a partner in your business or you have subs that you use, some of that weight will be shifted to them more so than other times. And I think having that team, family, business, whoever, that are on that boat, I keep saying the boat or train, that are going to be with you for that is, I think, the best thing about being an entrepreneur. Yeah. To me, at least. Having, if I can get a great life and my family's, has a great life and I can afford, people like Ryan and my other employees, and hopefully we get more and they have a great life, that to me is just, it's the best. Yeah. It's the best.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. What do you, because you mentioned that you read a lot of books, and I know do you listen to the Audible? Are you an Audible guy?
That's pretty much the only way I consume books nowadays, is just
through Audible.
Through Audible, yeah.
What are your books now that you're listening to? Or what ones have stood out to you over the past maybe few months or so? Because I need to get back. I used to read a lot about there's a lot of books that I've tried to read, self-help business books, and I've been so bad about actually learning to get back into doing it. So Audible for me is becoming more of a thing in podcasting. But what type of things have you really grasped recently that maybe someone like I could gravitate towards?
So I try to read basically. I read on just wide spectrum of topics. Really, really wide, right? I like good fiction, like anything by Don Winslow. I really like Cartel and those types of books. Love it. Business books. So to me, the way I divide business books is basically, in my mind, it's almost like at what level do they appear to me? There is high level, kind of like go, you can do this, motivational.
Yeah.
But it's good, right? I feel like it's good in the beginning when you need that first kick in the butt, right? But I'm not at that point anymore. I don't need someone to tell me go. So that book is not good, does not appeal to me anymore. It will appeal to someone else. So right away you move to the second tier of books, the way I'm kind of like compartmentalizing in my head. So the second tier of book is probably something that is medium level, where it's like you get a little bit of go, but you also have some lessons, right? Like literally lessons where if you are driving and you're listening to this book, I'm pulling over and clicking on 30 seconds, go back, and I'm literally writing down the lesson.
Yep.
And that's probably my favorite type of a book nowadays, like where I can literally pick 3 to 5 lessons from a book that I can apply to my business. The third level of books that I look at, those are, I think, very super detailed, like strategy, where you start listening to it and you're kind of like, nah, I need to get this book in print.
It's almost like a textbook.
There's no way I can consume this in Audible. And those obviously are very much good to consume, but it's just I need to read it, and I don't have a lot of opportunities to do that. So for example, I bought this book that I read, Traction, right? Amazing book on growing your business, setting it up right. I read it in Audible. And then I bought the hard copy because it's like one of those books where you really need to read it and highlight it and write out all the answers.
Yep.
Scaling Up by Vern, I forget his last name. Amazing book. Teaches you how to scale up your business. But again, you really need to sit down and write those things out and follow up on those lessons. So those are the two books that really stood out. I'm reading Artist's Way by, I think it's Julia Cameron. That book is teaches you how to be creative, right? Because one of the things that I think I was lacking as a child is I never kind of I was not in an environment conducive to the growth of my creativity. I was not a good painter in school. I was not participating in plays much, you know. Now I'm doing these videos, it's kind of like you wondering like, well, where does this come from, right? But well, maybe there is something there, but how do you develop it? So that's an interesting book for me to read. I read about history of jazz, read that book. That was interesting. I'm reading a book, I'm actually listening to a book about cultural differences between in various parts of the world. And that's super interesting too. Super interesting because things like, just to give you a quick example, turns out that I come from society with a high power structure where you look up to the professor and you take whatever they say as a gospel. Back to what we discussed half an hour ago, I mentioned to you, I had trouble studying in the university. I didn't know how to study, right? Now I can explain it because I come from a different environment where you look up to that professor and whatever they say is the gospel and you do not question anything and you do not ask for clarifications, because if you do, it shows that you're dumb, like you're basically failing. Whereas in America, it's a low power structure where it's more of a democratic interaction between a professor and a student. And so things like that, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, well, again, talking about self-reflecting, now you can see why you've done the things you've done and why you couldn't physically learn the things you've done, because this is just where it came from.
Exactly.
But that only comes with experience.
So yeah, so my advice is read books. I try to do to everyone. I try to do 26 books a year, like one every 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I've been going like this for the past 4 years now.
I got to get back. And I'm more now, I'm a podcast, YouTube type stuff. Like I'm sure you know Gary Vee.
Of course.
I love Gary Vee still, but you talk about this, which I think is such a nail in the head thing with these tiers. Gary Vee is a very good motivational guy. I think after that, I'm a little more turned off from him now because I don't need that anymore. So now I don't really follow him as much. Yes, he does still have some like concrete things to do, but most of his videos are no one gives a shit about you. No one cares about you complaining. Just do it. And I don't need to hear that 5 days a week.
I agree.
So now I move on to other guys and other people who are a bit more motivational, but in that second tier that you can take away some key things.
Yes.
Yeah. And then also, you know, other podcasts and textbooks that, you're pulling over to write down things that you're like, oh my God, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very smart way, I think, of educating yourself, is to notice where these tiers are. And, you know, are you at tier 2 now? Or are you at tier 1? And if you're starting off, yes, you might be at tier 1. Get motivated, move up to tier 2.
Yeah.
Learning stuff, still getting motivated. But now you can move up to tier 3, where now you can learn literal things. And maybe you fall back down a bit and need tier 1 again to push you back up. But that way, I think of approaching not just books, education in general is, I think, such a good way of looking at how to learn.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, and same thing about Gary Vee. So you asked me about the mentor. I think, honestly, he's probably the best mentor after the first 2 guys, the bagel guys, as I call them. After the first 2 bagel guys, Gary Vee was probably the single biggest impact on me, right? Because when I discovered him right about the time when I left corporate. And every morning in the kitchen as I'm making breakfast for my kids, and I'm thinking, oh my God, another hard day. another day without paycheck, still 8-9 months until hopefully I sell this thing. You hear him at his level 1, go hustle, like kill it, and it's like, you know what, thank you for, and you're kind of like looking at that phone, like the phone is on the window, and I'm like, thank you for that fire and kicking ass. Like I really needed it.
And now you can see, so now we'll fast forward to Catalyst now. I mean, I know we work with you a lot on videos, but I think you can almost kind of see a little bit of Gary Vee, a little bit of just your influences from your past coming into this. Because now, yes, the videos you're doing are very creative. They're different than most developers. Like, so even until the site, that series you do. So tell me a little bit about how that started. It's basically The Office, but how did that kind of come about to do?
So, Ryan and I, one day we, it's not his fault that his client is not prepared. Like I didn't have any ideas for a video shoot. So he was really discouraged. We were kind of like sitting and thinking like, well, what else we shoot, right? And I said, Ryan, I have these crazy situations happening on daily basis, but you're not around all the time. Like, how do we do this? And he said, well, why don't we try to do this in the office style? So part of it is, first of all, you can sit in front of that crappy blind that you have in your office that was from like 1980s. It was so yellow and crooked, but it was perfect because it was the right setting. He's like, you can just sit in front of that blind, look straight in the camera and talk about the event that happened, right? So that's already a piece of content. But if you can also recreate a little bit of some of them, right? Or have footage that you do yourself with the phone and we can combine it together, then together we can probably create a good piece of content out of it. And so that's why we shot our first episode. It was completely in the office. So the hardest episodes to shoot are the ones that are on actual construction site that you need to integrate with the office material. The easiest are the ones, obviously, you can see when we're in office.
Yeah.
But I think, but in a nutshell, what I'm trying to create is just a little, 4, 5, 6 minute snippet of construction life. It's just like a snapshot of construction life. That is honestly, for the most part, is true. Like we may overplay certain things a little bit, like the way we say it, but those are all real situations.
Yeah, you add a little more drama, but I think people love. I mean, you clearly get a lot of views on those videos, and you guys should definitely watch these videos. They're hilarious. But and that's almost like why we do our silly beer review videos and food review things that maybe aren't necessarily quote unquote work related, but they are. For us, that stuff that we do is kind of like that hyper local. So we talked about before the podcast that, we get recognized in town, and Ryan does, because you're the beer review guy or you're the hawk guy and you do the drone stuff. Similar with what you do. People might say, hey, I love that Office episode. No, I appreciate, the site episode. I appreciate that.
We get a lot of feedback on that. So I hear a lot. So obviously, goes back to what you're saying. People start recognizing you. Obviously, the biggest reward is that when I meet people and they say, I watch all your videos, they're great. That's one thing they say. And the second thing, I watch all of your videos, I feel like I already know you. Because I think that you can see not just mine, but my teammates' personalities as well through those videos. You can definitely formulate your opinion about Igor and Debbie and the new guy Medardo that just showed up in our videos. So I think it's good because it basically shows people what our brand is. We're not trying to sell anything. It's just basically just get to know our brand.
But like, how valuable is that someone could come to you already knowing about who you are, and now they can come to you. They've done all the work previous to you coming there. You don't have to pitch your services to them. They know who you are. That is so valuable to us, and with you too. People know who you are.
100%. It's I think it's a game changer. I think that like I mentioned to you that I went to a conference and the people on the panel were saying, like, you lead with the brand. That's what you lead with. Don't lead with product. Lead with brand. So it makes total sense. People need to relate to the brand. They need to feel passionate about the brand.
And you have that passion, that's for sure.
This is the goal. This is the message that I'm sending through the organization. Be passionate about what you do. My team, everyone is very enabled. We have very low structure. Everyone is passionate about the job. I always tell my team, you do what is right.
Where is the company going now? So here we are in 2020. You've built it to where it is. You've learned a lot of stuff along the way, but now where is this going?
So the grand goal is I would like to get into multi-unit buildings. So I definitely want to scale up, and I would like to build 20, 30, 40 unit buildings. I would say that's a 5-year goal.
It's right quite a step up from, these kind of one-off houses too.
Yeah. It's
is it exciting to you? Is it in the back of your mind that that fear of failure at all, or for you at this point, are you just so focused on growing this to a point where now you're getting into these bigger levels of buildings?
I think you always need to be cautious, right? So I double, triple check myself. You obviously have to. I'm not fearful of it, but obviously I have concerns, and I want to make sure that we don't make any uncalculated moves. So we are going very careful. I'm doing a lot of due diligence. I'm trying to find the right site. I don't want to say time because you don't look for that. Timing is always right.
Timing
so
is,
yeah. Timing is time only runs out. You don't get new time. So I'm not looking for the right time. I'll do it. I just need to make sure it's like a serendipity thing. Like everything needs to come together. I've had opportunities so far. This site was offered. This site was offered for one reason or another. It didn't work out. But I have a feeling that we're still making progress towards that goal. And I think the team is excited. I always tell them about what my vision is, and I'm just happy. Like I'm pumped that I have a really cool team in place.
I can tell. I mean, after talking for the hour or so we've talked, I can tell you're passionate about this, which is great. I mean, it's great. It's great to see, and that's why I wanted to have you on. I mean, I know we've met a few times. I know you've worked with Ryan a bunch, but I wanted to talk to you before that and just get to know who you are. And I think off the bat, when I first met with you, I think that passion and drive was something that I could immediately tell from someone like you. And that for me, I think is great because I feel like I have that. And I think you mentioned before that you kind of can vibe with people and tell if they're similar in that way. And I think similarly with myself, I think you just have that passion and drive to grow something that you can call your own.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is, I think, fantastic.
Absolutely.
If people do want to, I think just to kind of sum it up, if you were to give an entrepreneur, we'll call it entrepreneur, if they're looking to start their passion, whether they have a full-time job like yourself and now they're quitting, what advice can you give to them almost as a mentor to maybe say, this is something that I've learned that I can teach to you guys to make the process, I guess, for you to make the step, I guess, to be an entrepreneur? What would that piece of advice be?
Okay, so it's, first of all, save cash. Don't spend money on stupid things. And I know I sound like Gary Vee, but I think it's tremendously important. We as a company, and we were talking about this before the meeting. I mentioned to you before we started shooting this that we're about to order our merchandise. I only have, in all these years, I've ordered hats once and t-shirts once. Like I think 25 and 10 respectively. We don't spend, I try to run very, very lean, right? And I explain this to my team. Don't feel like we're on the verge of going bankrupt or anything or going out of business. It's actually quite the opposite. We're doing fine. But what I'm trying to do is to prepare for the bad days, right? For the rainy days. So save as much cash as possible, run very lean. You do not need all the tchotchkes. You do not need all the fancy stuff and hats and all this gear. You can build your brand without it. That's first of all. Second of all, obviously, if you're already committed to doing it, then you gotta go hard, and you need to stop listening to all your friends that are going to try to tell you that you're not going to succeed. Oh, it sucks. You know how many bagel shops are out there already. You know how many video studios are like that. You just need to zoom out and you need to go hard and show your personality. Because I truly feel, I was just talking to Igor, one of my employees, he's passionate about sandwiches. Kid loves sandwiches. And I tell him all the time, open a sandwich shop. And he says, well, how am I going to do it when there are so many sandwich shops around? You do it by not listening to people that tell you you can't, save the cash, and build the most amazing brand. You have so many social media tools right now that allow you to get all this exposure for $0, right? Shoot the video, do contests, let people create their own sandwiches. You can create that brand respect, brand equity where people fall in love with you. So that's kind of like all of that combined. I think that's my recommendation.
That's fantastic advice. And you guys definitely should take that to heart. I think we can learn a lot from you. If people do want to find out more about Catalyst, where can they find out more about the company?
So the best way to contact me is on Instagram. It's Catalyst Dev. No space, just Catalyst Dev.
We'll link that on this podcast as well.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Gene, I appreciate your time. I think, even me, I think I've learned a lot in this podcast about you, and just even, again, self-reflecting. I can already think about some things that you said that I kind of want to implement in my own business too.
Thank you for having me.
No, of course. And I think, we talked about how I don't know, I might get nervous, or I don't know if I want to do podcasting stuff. I think you have a lot to offer to people, and I almost feel like you should do more of this stuff more often. I think you have such a great perspective on life that most people maybe don't have. And I think you can offer a lot to people. Really? And I really appreciate you coming on and offering that to my audience.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Of course.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into episode number 7 of the Take a Mulligan podcast. If you're watching, thank you for watching. If you're not watching and listening to this, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Also, Facebook and Instagram will post some quick teasers there. And if you have any questions for us or Gene, you can ask them there on social media. So until next time, catch you guys later.